Man, Steelers Nation, what a week! Just when we think things can't get any crazier, something else comes up. There are rumors of a possible change with Mike Tomlin, a frustrated TJ Watt basically making it clear to the world that he's fed up with the same problems, and even Mason Rudolph starting the game with a decision that divided the fans and then coming out with a controversial message. Everything seems urgent now, as if the entire season is hanging by a thread, and the first one is already causing chaos. Alright, let's talk about the elephant in the room, because this one has Steelers Nation split right down the middle. Mike Tomlin, the longest tenured coach in the league, the man who hasn't had a single losing season since stepping in back in 2007, is officially on the hot seat. And not the warm, polite kind. We're talking full blast, sizzling, something's gotta change type heat. Look, nobody is denying the man's resume. He's a Super Bowl champ, a culture builder, a stabilizing force in an organization that hates chaos. But lately, it's been the same movie on repeat. Pittsburgh hovering around 500 like it's a personality trait, unable to get past the wildcard round since 2017, and always feeling one step behind the teams that actually matter in January. The fan base respects Tomlin, no doubt, but that respect is starting to come with a side of frustration, because for years now, it feels like the team is stuck in neutral. The scheme hasn't evolved, the offensive identity is all over the place, and the standard is the standard speeches don't hit the same when the results look exactly like last season, and the one before that. And the roster? Man, it's been a roller coaster. Ever since Big Ben retired, Pittsburgh hasn't nailed the quarterback spot. Aaron Rodgers coming in brought a spark, sure, but he's 41. He's not the long-term guy, and he hasn't been lighting it up statistically either. The DK Metcalf trade should have been a home run, but flipping George Pickens right after? That aged horribly. Pickens is out there cooking with the Cowboys and sitting second in the league in receiving yards while we're trying to squeeze production out of a running back room that screams middle of the pack. The offensive line? Not what it used to be. The run game, hit or miss, and the defense, once the trademark of this franchise, isn't bailing out bad offense anymore. TJ Watt looks human. Jalen Ramsey and Cam Hayward aren't the same forces they were years ago, and the unit as a whole has lost that fear factor that used to define Pittsburgh football. Even special teams, Tomlin's original specialty, has been a disappointment this season. Bad field position swings, missed assignments, miscues at the worst possible times. It's been rough, and fans are getting tired of vague post-game comments, moral victories, and those "we'll fix it" promises that never translate on the field. Right now, the Steelers sit at 6-5 in one of the weakest divisions they've seen in years, and even then it feels like a miracle every time they sneak out a win. Missing the playoffs again is a real possibility, and if that happens, the pressure to start a new era won't just be noise, it'll be the unavoidable next step. Tomlin is a legend, a future Hall of Famer, one of the greatest coaches of the 21st century, but even legends hit a point where the message stops landing and the system stops evolving, and Steelers Nation is starting to wonder if that moment has finally arrived. And if all that wasn't enough, the next story hit even harder, and it dropped right after the game. This one shows just how fed up the team's biggest leader really is. If the loss to the Bears already felt bad, TJ Watt's reaction afterward made it sting even more. This dude rarely smiles after a loss, but on Sunday, he sounded like a guy who's just done with watching the same movie every week. And the wild part is, he made history in the game. Passed his own brother, JJ Watt, on the all-time sack list with 115. Huge moment, strip sack, touchdown. All of it. But when reporters brought it up, he didn't even blink. "I'll think about it later," he said, and you could hear it in his voice. The man wasn't in the mood for any confetti. All he cared about was the scoreboard and how the Steelers once again let a winnable game slip right through their fingers. "We've got a lot of things that need to be fixed, and fixed quickly." That's as real as it gets. And honestly, he wasn't wrong, because the defense actually did its job late. Watt and the boys gave the offense 2 real chances to win the game. They forced stops, they got the ball back, they did everything you'd expect from the leaders of this team. But then came the offense, and the frustration hit a whole new level. Mason Rudolph missed a wide open Roman Wilson down the sideline on a potential game-changing throw. Later, the Steelers tried to claw into field goal range, only to completely botch the drive. Punt, wasted opportunity, same old story. Even Cam Hayward, usually the steady, composed voice in the room, sounded like a guy hitting his limit. "The hourglass is going," he said. "There's not a lot of time for mistakes." That line hits different when you realize how tight the AFC North race is, and how one sloppy loss can cost everything, and it already did. While the Steelers were still doing press conferences, the Ravens beat the Jets. Just like that, Pittsburgh lost its lead in the division, a gut punch they probably hadn't even processed yet. Now the Steelers face 2 games against Baltimore down the stretch, games that will basically define the season. Everything is still technically possible, but the belief, the confidence, the vibe, it's not there right now. And you can tell by the way TJ spoke that he knows it. He's tired of excuses, tired of small mistakes, tired of the almost. If your biggest star sounds defeated, that says a lot about where the team really stands. And to make the whole day even crazier, the story on the offensive side didn't help at all, especially with what happened on the very first throw of the game. If the defense walked out of Chicago frustrated, the offense walked out confused. And a big part of that was how the game started. With Aaron Rodgers out, Mason Rudolph stepped in, and right on the very first snap, he went full gunslinger mode. He tried a deep shot to DK Metcalf to set the tone early, and instead handed the ball straight to Nahshon Wright, who made a ridiculous interception that woke up the entire stadium. Now, most quarterbacks would second guess that throw after the game, not Rudolph. He stood in front of the Pittsburgh media and basically said, "Yeah, I'd do it again. No hesitation, no apology, just conviction. I was trying to give DK a 50-50 shot," he said. "I'll do that every time." You can agree or disagree, but confidence definitely isn't his problem. The issue is what came after. Rudolph actually played a clean, controlled game. 77% completions, 171 yards, a touchdown, and that one pick. But there were 2 moments that defined everything. The early interception and the sack fumble later on, where Chicago peeled off the tackle and blew up the check down he was trying to throw. He tried to reset the play, and boom, ball on the ground. Against a team like the Bears, those mistakes don't just show up, they snowball. And the offense as a whole, messy, up and down, flashes of life sprinkled between drives that looked like they were being drawn in the dirt. Metcalf, the guy they paid superstar money for, barely got the explosive plays they needed. The run game couldn't carry the load, and the timing between Rudolph and his receivers was hit or miss all afternoon. The defense didn't help either. Between both sides of the ball, it felt like the Steelers were stuck playing catch-up the entire second half. And when you're 6'5" in a brutal AFC North, every small mistake magnifies into a season-shaping problem. With the loss, Pittsburgh drops out of first place in the division, a spot they held onto by the fingertips. Now they're chasing Baltimore, with 0 margin for error, and 2 head-to-head matchups still coming. Pressure doesn't even begin to describe it. So now the question for Steelers Nation is simple. Given everything Rudolph dealt with, backup role, road game, tough defense, and the weight of the moment, what grade does he deserve? At this point, it feels like the Steelers are stuck repeating the same mistakes while the season slips away. Something has to change, but I want to know from you, what would you fix first? Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what happens next.